we have now. So we are trying to teach people how to grow their own food, harvest their own food, and then preserve their food in different ways. So we have those coming up. And we also talk about different archaic laws that are coming up that we have for agriculture and the ways that we need to change them. So we kind of try and tie it in as we go through all of these steps to why it's important to have somebody in the state of Pennsylvania in the lieutenant governor position that is big on agriculture. And Christine, why are you laughing at me?
Well, no I think I messed up a little bit because I hit the 30-second countdown, but I didn't hit the go live button. That was my problem. So we've been live for about 58 seconds. I apologize. This is a new stream for me. This is because I'm out of practice now. I was going extreme. Welcome to the Lunatic Libertarian. I got Nicole Shultz. I got Christine. Liberty 101, not a real libertarian. I made a mistake. She was in the middle of her speech about what she's doing this weekend. I apologize. We missed about 60 seconds of that. Yeah, and it's Friday. I'm tired. I was kicking home trannies today, and my brain's not really all working there. I got a bunch of stuff going on. So, welcome to the show. I apologize for the confusion. So we have Nicole Shultz running for Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, joining me today, and her campaign manager, Christine. Just a little double take, because remember, I'm a lunatic, so some stuff doesn't always go the way that it's supposed to. We're here to talk about the Keystone Party here in Pennsylvania. You guys are working hard for that party. Mm-hmm. We are here to talk about what you guys got planned for Joe Slosky and yourself here, Nicole, for the state of Pennsylvania. Let's get right into some issues. What is the issue with fracking in Pennsylvania as far as you're concerned?
Okay, so a lot of people will say pollution is the biggest issue that Pennsylvania has with fracking. We have about, I think last count it was 15 different companies that are allowed to frack in Pennsylvania. I could be wrong. It's been a little while since I've updated that information and looked at it. There are 3 to 5 of those companies who have most of the fines for fracking, so they're polluting, and then the state is coming in and fining them. I think the problem with fining them is they know, and they build that price into their budget. So they know if they break a pollution law that they'll be fined this amount. So they do a cost analysis. Is it worth it to pollute and pay that fine, or is it more cost effective to do what we need to do to not pollute? And I think that's an issue. I think once they are caught up in that system, then they figure it's just cheaper for us to pollute because then we pay this fine and it's somebody else's problem to come clean it up later. Once they're caught polluting, or once they're caught, because accidents happen, let's face it. As long as it's not an accident and they're doing it on purpose, I don't think they should be allowed to frack anymore. I think that ticket should be pulled. You shouldn't be fracking in Pennsylvania. I will say that at least they try to do some good with the fines that they get from fracking. Local municipalities and boroughs and townships and stuff in Pennsylvania can then apply for grants to use that money from those fines to upgrade their playgrounds or their baseball fields or whatever. So they're trying to do some good with that money that's being fined to the fracking companies. I just don't think that it's an even playing field there. We shouldn't be polluting somebody else's land so that we can come over here and beautify something else for kids. I that's a double-edged sword. And that's a hard one to get out of that rut. Because the townships and the municipalities and boroughs in Pennsylvania do need some extra money to upgrade playgrounds and baseball fields and whatever for the kids to have a nice place to play. I think we need to find that money elsewhere other than saying, okay, well, if you are fracking in Pennsylvania and you pollute, that's okay. We're going to take your money, but we're just going to spend it over here to make it better over here. That's wrong.
Yeah, and it brings to my mind, because I don't live in Pennsylvania, so I don't have that experience. It brings to my mind that movie Dark Water, where DuPont was polluting the rivers and the streams, and killing cattle and damaging humans left and right for many, many years, not only at the facility in which employed pretty much all the towns, and then you have also, what was going on as far as the exposure to pregnant women and stuff like that. So I think that companies should be held responsible, and getting rid of, PAC money or lobbyist money on a state level. Do you think that permits are a good thing as far as controlling who's doing what is best for the public, or do you think that we should still be more as far as we should trust the corporations to do, what's best for the environment and for the people?
I think trusting the corporations to do but what's best for the environment has proven to not work. I mean, we're doing it now. That's our current policy. We'll trust these companies to come in here and treat our lands the way that we want them to be treated, only to find out that they don't. I mean, it's common sense. We know, like it's just said, we know the fracking companies will do a cost analysis. Is it cheaper for me to do this or cheaper for me to do this? A corporation is going to go with the cheapest route possible. That doesn't mean that it's always necessarily the best route for the environment or for the people. I think I'm not sure that permits are the way to go, but and legislation obviously isn't the way to go, because we have legislation now and it's not working. I think that it's going to come down to a free market eventually, and how it should be. If you come onto our property or into Pennsylvania, if you come into the state of Pennsylvania and you treat our state as the beautiful state that it is, and you keep the pollution as low as possible. I mean, there's going to be some pollution. Let's be realistic. But as long as you keep it as low as possible and you do what you say you're going to do, then you have a better chance of coming into Pennsylvania and doing more jobs and more work. If you come into Pennsylvania and you just leave a mess for everybody else to clean up, then you should be barred from doing any work in Pennsylvania. And I think that should go down the line to not just the company, but let's say you're with a company and you leave that company and now you're the head of another company and that company wants to come into Pennsylvania. A leopard doesn't change its spots. It just rearranges them until you're comfortable, and then when you're comfortable, it goes back. So, no, so we have to look at not only the company, but who's heading those companies and barring them from doing business in Pennsylvania.
Well, and that brings up an idea that pops in my head. What about giving the energy independence to the individual to tap into the natural harvesting and not make it a mass product, and just supply it to the people that are in the state as like a free energy source, just because it's so abundant? And then if you can create a system that will provide that free energy just to make Pennsylvania state efficient, and then if you want to export it out to everybody else, do you think that the people that actually own the land and if they're knowledgeable in how to harvest that, would be able to create a system that would be, profitable for Pennsylvania, just as a commerce, maybe not even in currency, but just as a commerce, and then everybody becomes energy efficient in Pennsylvania. Nobody has to pay an energy bill, and then these corporations that come in and do detriment to the environment, or your property, or even your family. Do you think that one route could lead to another?
I think there's a path for for that to happen. We kind of do it with solar right now. So if you have solar panels and you create more energy than your household will use, you can sell that energy back to the energy company, and then you get paid for that. So we do have that system set up for solar, and it probably could be used for fracking. I just don't know enough about fracking and how they transport that to understand how that would work. I'm sure I could look into it pretty quickly and figure it out. It's just not something that was on my purview, and that until you brought it up, I didn't consider it. But that is a good idea. I'm just not sure of how to do that.
Because I'm sure that most of the energy that is provided out of Pennsylvania is exported out to other states and for other resources. So if you could make Pennsylvania in itself to where, if there's a surplus, then each individual person gets their money or their compensation as free energy because it's coming out of their land anyway. I mean, I think that's a way to make sure that the environment stays in a good state and the people can become more self-sufficient.
Well, we have different energy sources in Pennsylvania. We also have coal because we're one of the big coal states. And not far from me is Bruner Island, which they transport coal up and down the river. I'm not sure if Bruner Island is still working. I know when I was younger, we would go over there and watch it. I know that also too when I was younger and I lived in State College, we would go up above Clearfield and see the strip mines. So we have different energy sources coming out of Pennsylvania. And I know that all of it does get shipped out. Not all of it stays here.
Well, and everybody wants to come up with new systems as far as harvesting. I think that's something that, if I was a corporation that was in that business, I would try and figure out the most efficient way to extract that resource without hitting my pocket too much. But then again, if you were providing energy to the state, as far as you're doing a lease on the land and stuff like that. When it comes to farming, do you think that the impact of product extraction out of the ground also affects the communities around it as far as trying to produce a product for the people?
So farming is one of our number one industries in Pennsylvania, and a lot of the fracking happens around our farmlands. If you're polluting those farmlands because you're not fracking properly, then yes, we have a big issue because we're not going to be able to get the crops that we had before. It's possible that those lands might not be able to be farmed for a while, and they should be compensated for that. If you're fracking, and here's the thing though, when they drill those holes for fracking, they could go under somebody's property who didn't sign a lease and frack from under them, and their land can be polluted from that. There have been towns that have been polluted from fracking. So our first and foremost, we need to make sure that our lands are protected for our farmers. We have a billion-dollar industry in between milk and corn and wheat and all of our vineyards. So for the wines, all of our orchards, we have some of the best orchards, especially in Adams County, which is just apple country. It's apple orchard after apple orchard. And they supply Musselman's applesauce. And there's a few other companies that they supply apples to make applesauce, and anything apple, it pretty much comes out of Adams County. But if we're fracking in these areas and we're polluting, that pollution has a long-lasting effect on our farms. So that's kind of why we put fracking on our platform along with agriculture, because they kind of go hand in hand in Pennsylvania right now. And if we're not taking care of our land, we're not going to have the food that we typically grow in Pennsylvania because we're not going to be able to grow it.
Yeah, I would totally agree. We have issues here in Wisconsin with the mass, dairy systems here and mass farming, and it's corporate farming. It's not to be sustainable. It's to be, profitable. And sometimes that will be detrimental to your community and your environment. But yet again, people still don't understand where their food comes from. They don't understand the work that goes into it, because I think that modern convenience has become a problem in this country. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now, is that we printed a bunch of money, we gave everybody what they wanted, and now we're suffering the consequences of it. And as a person that produces so much on your farm, I mean, why don't you let the people know what kind of work goes into that?
So I will tell people I am the laziest farmer on the planet, and Christine will laugh at me every time I say this because I am. I am totally the laziest farmer. Uh, and I don't hide it. I just don't hide it. I don't weed. I probably should. I'd probably get better yields if I did weed, but I've got 5 acres. I don't have time to weed 5 acres by myself, and it's hard to get help. It's hard for farmers to get help. So typically, a typical farmer, depending on what you have, if you have cattle, you're probably up at 4 a.m. because you're either milking cows or doing whatever. And Levi wants to get cattle, and I refuse to get cattle because I'm like, no, I don't know who's milking that cow at 4 a.m., but it's not me. It is not me. We have chickens on our farm, and I actually bought. This is how lazy I am. I actually bought a automatic door for the chicken coop, so it'll open at 6 a.m. and it'll close at 9 p.m. So I don't have to do it.
Wow.
But
It's not laziness. It's not laziness. It's genius because she prioritizes the other stuff that needs to be done too, which will make her good for office.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So, but I do go out. I go out every night because we have babies out there now, the baby chickens. So we do go out every night because our babies like to be in the tree. So we do go out every night at like 8:30, 9 o'clock to make sure all the babies are out of the tree and in the coop. So right now we're harvesting mulberries. So we have 15, 16, somewhere around in there, mulberry trees. So you tarp underneath all the mulberry trees. You have a big pole with a hook, and you stand underneath it, and you grab a limb, and you shake it, and all the mulberries drop onto the tarps. And then you pick up the tarps, put them in a bucket, and then you have to process that food. So typically, and I just did some, I have a food processor that will strain out the stems and the seeds, and then just give me the berry, the rest of the berry and the juice, and then I'll freeze that until I need it to make jams and jellies. Here's within the next few days, we're going to be picking 250 black raspberry plants, 275 black raspberry plants, and we could be out there for hours picking because it'll just be me and my husband out there picking. When it comes to apple harvesting, we're out there doing that. We pick our own cherries, so there's a lot that goes into orchards and farms. It just depends on what you have. Some is more labor intensive than others. And right now it's hard for farmers because diesel fuel is ridiculous. We spent, I think, a little over $60 just to fill up 2 5-gallon tanks for diesel for our small tractor. I can't imagine what some of the bigger farms use daily for their tractors.
Yeah,
and
thousands
easy. I mean, the equipment itself is $300,000-$400,000. Just for
somewhere it's up to $1 million, depending on. We have corporate farmers here that got a $1 million John Deere, 1,100 horsepower that cuts I don't know how many rows of corn. And they just, and then the trucks are in with the trailers.
Well, and it probably has the whole computer system inside. So, it just maps it so they know where they're going. They know what they're doing. And I'm not that sophisticated. I have a small Kubota. It does what I need it to do. I don't need a big one. We also have some older tractors. We have a 1940s Alice Chalmers and I think a 1943 Oliver or something like that. Yeah, so we got some old ones over here that still work and they still do the job. But it's not easy. It's not easy work. I spend most of my time processing the fruit down just so I can use it, can it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And when she says you shake it, she means Levi shakes the trees and then she just collects all the stuff.
No. I shake the trees too. I mean, granted, Levi did it yesterday while we were out collecting signatures. He did all of the trees for me, which is why I had all the mulberries to process today. But typically it takes 2 or 3 people out there doing those trees. So
I'm just giving you a hard time. That's all.
I know. But Levi does do a lot around here, so I don't have to because, I'm spoiled.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is that it's always going to be somebody that's going to have to put in the work physically to produce a product. And
Yes.
a lot of people really don't understand what that entails. They only read it in books, they read it in, or they see it in the movies. They don't understand what that labor actually entails.
There
All they
are
know is they go to
times.
the grocery store and
Yep.
I pick this item off the shelf and here it is at my convenience. So
There are
with
days where I am making jelly for 15, 16, 17 hours. There are days where I get 2 hours of sleep because I've been processing all of that for 4 hours, and then I have a show the next day. So yeah, there are some days where I get to sleep in, and then there are some days where I get 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah, I totally understand that too. When we talk about modern convenience and what it's bringing to humanity as right now, because we had COVID restrictions for 2 years in Wisconsin, we didn't. The legislature said that medical mandates cannot go any further than 2 weeks now, and then they have to be reviewed. It's not 30 days, it's not 60 days, it's 2 weeks. We have that our Constitution, as our state Constitution, says that all of this stuff is unconstitutional. It's been thrown out the window. What in Pennsylvania do you think you would do as far as restricting people's movements, restricting people's ability to work, or anything like that, as far as relying on federal funds to get stuff done?
I don't think any state should be relying on federal funds for anything. Um, that beholdens us to them, and we shouldn't be. We should have. We should figure it out that we don't need to. We don't necessarily need to take their money, whether it's a national disaster or, in the case of COVID, at a pandemic. I think Pennsylvania did some things correctly, but they did a lot of things incorrectly. Um, I understand that you have a wide range of people all over the United States. Some people, from people who didn't believe that COVID existed, to people who are still frightened to leave their houses and still frightened to go out anywhere, and they're still wearing masks. Um, Christine and I just did a car show 2 weeks ago. Is it 2 weeks ago? And actually, one of the vendors there said, "Hey, can you put me by a door so I can sit outside because I'm still afraid?" And then the one day she didn't even show up because she's like, "Everybody's in there coughing and sneezing," and I'm like, "But it's allergy season. Everybody's coughing and sneezing." Um, so, um, so we have a broad spectrum of people all across the United States. I think that if you felt that you had medical issues where you didn't feel safe being out and you were afraid that COVID would harm you even more, then I understand that you would want to be home and take precautions. But there were those who didn't, who were like, "You know what, I'm healthy. I don't have any underlying medical conditions. I'm not in the age range that they claim that is most acceptable or is it's most deadly for. Why can't I be out and work?" And I think that we could have done a lot better for our economy had we left some things open. And a lot of things could have been opened. It made no sense in Pennsylvania that Walmart could be open,
Right.
but your local small um, Ace Hardware couldn't be open. That makes no sense. So you're going to have everybody going to Walmart where everybody was just standing in the aisles and talking and bullshitting because they hadn't been able to speak to anybody for weeks. They're all congregating in Walmart.
Correct. And
That
you
makes no
touched on
sense.
exactly what I wanted you to get to is the cluster system that was built to
Yes.
put people into clusters. So you
Yes.
eliminate competition, you put people into clusters, and then the narrative can move forward. I think that when it comes to Pennsylvania, because you have a vast area as far as a state, it is a very large state.
It
I
is.
think, and it's a commerce state because everybody's got to go through that pikeway to get where they're going to the East Coast or come back over to the West Coast, especially in the northern part of the United States. I think that Pennsylvania is a great resource for energy efficiency in this country. I think that fracking is probably not the best way to harvest that energy. We can come up with other systems. I think that the detriment to the community from implementing these quote unquote cheap systems, but your energy is still not self-sufficient because you're not providing it to the people in the state. Everybody should have a natural gas pipeline in the state of Pennsylvania, in my opinion, and it should all be free because you guys are the state that's producing it.
Right.
If we can get people to understand that freedom of movement is a good thing, having options, if I want to come to my local grower, my farmer, or whoever, it should be encouraged that the ability to gather goods and resources is from a wide variety of sources, not just centralized systems.
I think COVID was an eye opener for people in Pennsylvania because all across the United States, grocery shelves were very bare, and it was hard to find things, and it was hard to get certain meats. It was hard to get a lot of different things. So we were actually starting Facebook groups on, okay, this is your local egg supplier. This is where you go. This person has chickens. They can't sell it to the restaurants that they used to sell it to because the restaurants are all closed. So they have excess. They need to get rid of it or they're dumping it. So you need eggs, you go here. You need beef, you go here. You need this. We were setting that up on Facebook, just regular people telling people, okay, take gallon jugs to this farmer and you can stock up on milk. Take egg cartons here, you can get eggs. I constantly was putting out on Facebook, okay, I have excess in this. I even just here recently, because egg prices are so high, I just put on Facebook that I have 18 dozen eggs. They're $2.50 a carton. It's a lot cheaper than the grocery store. Bring your own cartons and come get some eggs. So we're still doing it. The farmers are still doing it because we have products that need to get out there. But also, too, people have to understand, too, that going to your local farmers, and if they're giving you excess, they might, especially backyard farmers who have backyard chickens, they will not be pasteurized eggs. They will not be following the state's requirements for egg sales or anything like that. So you have to go in knowing what you're looking at, knowing what you're looking for, and being a smart consumer doing that.
And that takes a little bit of a skill set, correct?
It does to a degree. Yeah, it does. So that's another thing that we're trying to educate people on. It's like this. So I actually am one of the canning classes that I'm doing. I'm charging a little more for it just because I'm actually taking them to local farms, and I'm like, okay, this is your local farmer. This is what you're coming for. This is what you're asking for. And they will give you a good deal on it because you're going to ask for seconds. And seconds doesn't mean it's bad. Seconds means that it's not pretty enough for them to sell as regular. They can't sell it to the grocery store because it's not pretty looking. It might have a spot on it. It might have a blemish on it. Whatever. It's still edible, but it's going to save you money in the long run. So we do have some of those classes coming out too. And I think more farmers need to do that.
I remember used to ordering these boxes, and it would come from local sources if it was fresh produce. What the hell was the name of that website? My wife would be like,
Misfits.
Yes.
Yes.
Misfits box.
Yes. There's a few
Love
of
the
them.
Misfits box.
Yeah, there's a Misfits box. I forget, but there's like 5 or 6 different ones now that you can do it and order it from. And I think the reason why that started is because the older generation that used to go to the farms and say, hey, give me your seconds, because they were just going to can them or freeze them or whatever. They were, it's not a thing anymore. So now they have this excess of all of this food that's not pretty. What are we going to do with it? So now they've started those to get rid of that produce. That way, it doesn't go to waste.
Right.
There's actually we do have it set up so there's seconds, thirds, and then other. You never want to get the other. Thirds are okay. You might get a moldy piece here or there. But typically also too, those, the fruits and the vegetable farms will find a local pig farm to buy the others stuff that's just not edible, and there's stuff that's just not edible. And so it'll go to local pig farms, or it'll go to other local farms where whatever they have will eat that as their food. We actually, for a while there, we had a restaurant who had scraps, and I would go and pick up the scraps, and I would throw the scraps to my chickens. So we're trying to do what we can to make sure that nothing is wasted.
Correct. And that's the most sustainable thing that we can do. I think people don't understand. Pigs are kind of like the garbage cans of the world, because
So are chickens.
They'll eat anything too.
Yeah.
I remember at the other farm that I lived on that it was, he's like, man, you throw chickens in there, man, they'll eat everything in there. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And that's the thing. People with modern convenience don't understand the work that goes into it. They don't understand where their food comes from. And they also don't understand what the true nutrition side of it is to have natural foods versus all this quote unquote organic and all this other stuff. It's just what grows out of the ground, and that provides you a lot of ability to, withstand from certain illnesses or disease or something like that. But yet again, there is a risk dependent on who you receive your product from. So you better have that skill set to understand what you're looking at as far as your food. Otherwise, sometimes you might pay the price for it. But that's on the individual, and I think that depends. If it's malicious on the seller, then yeah, it's on them. But if it's
but then you go back to the free market. If it's malicious on the seller's part, then nobody will be buying that product anymore.
Correct.
Because word will get around quickly.
You said it there, because I mean, word of mouth, especially in small communities, or even in the city, stuff can get around quick, especially via social media and stuff like that. Christine, do you have any events that you want to announce for Nicole and let her know where she's going, what she's doing, and who she's talking to? Besides the Pride Fest, because I know you're going to Pride Fest.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing the Pride Fest tomorrow. We are also doing, I believe it's a 4 or 5 day event in Shrewsbury. It's a local carnival. So we'll be set up with the tent, promoting the Keystone Party, but also our candidates and collecting signatures down there. That's actually my district, and I'm running for state rep. So I'll be able to collect the signatures for my run as well. But we've got some stuff in the works for July, but pretty much those are kind of just the key things that are going on at the moment. Because everything's focused on making sure we get all the signatures. So we're doing these community events and then and just trying to get out there, go door to door. We have people standing at PennDOT. We have people standing, which is our DMV. We have people standing at postal offices where they can to collect signatures. So that's basically what we're all up to. Nicole's got some stuff for her business that she's doing in July as well. But basically, it's the Pride event tomorrow, and then the carnival at the end of the month.
Don't we have a Pride event on Sunday also?
That is in the air at the moment.
Okay.
I'm in communication with them now.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but if you're picking up the racetrack that's right on the corner, I'm sorry, I closed the windows, and I will mute the mic as they're making their. I think the heats are going on right now, so.
It's Friday night. It's race night, especially on the dirt tracks. I
have one right on the corner of. It's a half-mile away. I could walk there.
We have Lincoln Way Speedway. We have what's the one? There's one not too far. It's up above Dillsburg, I think. I can't think of it, but they actually do. I think they do sprint cars up there. So we have quite a few local racetracks in the area. Martins, I want to say
Martinsville?
Yeah, no, not Martinsville.
Pocono?
Well, Pocono is up there too, but Pocono's a little bit Pocono's up a little bit further, closer to New York than to us. I'm Googling racetracks around me. Baps Motor Speedway, Lincoln Way. I guess the one I was thinking of was Baps. That one's not too far. Lincoln Way I've been to a few times. I used to go up to New York to a few of them up in New York. Oh, we're also not very far from Cecil County, Maryland, and there's a racetrack down there. So
yeah, right now the price of fuel is killing us. It really is. And my father and I drag race. It's not circle track racing or road course racing. We drag race. So the price of fuel right now is really quite ridiculous. And when you were talking about just trying to fuel your little tractors with 2 5-gallon kegs, it's like, yeah, I filled up my F-150, which has a 36-gallon tank, and I put premium in it, and it's almost $6 a gallon. So that was $135 just for half a tank of fuel. It wasn't even a full tank of fuel. And I want people to put that into perspective, is that what it costs to actually get commerce to the stores and everything else. It's really ridiculous. And we have actually prime real estate in your state to provide energy efficiency. We had the Keystone Pipeline that was shut down, and I love the way that you guys have the Keystone Party, because it's talking about, give me your rendition of what Keystone actually means.
So we chose the name the Keystone Party because the keystone is the one stone in the structure that holds the archway together. So it holds everything together. Pennsylvania was named the Keystone State because it held the 13 original colonies together. So we want the Keystone Party, to be the keystone for the United States for liberty. We want liberty in our lifetime. We need liberty in our lifetime, and we think Pennsylvania is the strongest state to help achieve that goal.
What about you, Christine? Because you're running for a seat now too. You didn't tell me that, but you're running for now. So you're her campaign manager. Is Nicole going to be Christine's campaign manager? Is that how that's
Nicole does not have that skill set. I leave that up to Christine.
I'm a little bit of a control freak.
Nicole can do the funds. Nicole is a great treasurer, great auditor, but Christine is the best campaign manager.
I wouldn't necessarily maybe say best campaign manager. I'm definitely tolerable. I mean, when it comes to when I explain what the Keystone Party is, to be frank, it's a very similar to the way that I would have described what the Libertarian Party was to me previously, before new administration and removing of certain planks and stuff. Anyway, sorry, I'm still hoarse from yesterday collecting signatures.
And national is one thing, and local is another. So, as a participant of the Wisconsin Libertarian Party and being a part of that party, I think that our state is a very unrecognized state on a national level. So we're just quietly doing things the way that we want to do things. So.
Well, so when I talk about Keystone, I say we're fiscally conservative, socially inclusive. We do want to reduce spending. We do want to cut some taxes. However, we don't want to necessarily eliminate all taxes, because we do realize that some taxes are necessary to help things along. We do believe it should be brought back to the local level so that people can have a say in the taxes that they're paying. But we're trying to bring, and this is one of the things I also say, we're trying to bring common sense solutions to everyday problems. Anarchy is awesome if you think about it, and what it could, so what I don't personally think it's amazing, but some people think it is. And But a lot of those practices aren't realistic. They're not going to help us move society. And there's no way we're going to go from where we are to complete anarchy. Like it's not going to happen. The whole country will fail, and it'll be the purge or something happening.
Well, that
So
that that goes back to people's skill sets, but yeah.
yeah, but yeah, so we kind of just kind of rely on the fact that we're trying to bring in practical solutions. We're trying to work with people and not necessarily compromise, but to find the best solution to the current problem. And we realize that there's not one chess piece that needs to be moved. There's multiple to help see a change in the situation. Um, and then we go down and we break into different things when people have specific issues that they might hit for them. For me, I hit on the LGBTQ stuff because even though I'm a religious person, I am an ally, and that's actually what I was doing for tomorrow. I was making this. This Christian is
Oh,
an ally. Which, by the way, me and my friend Adam are apparently going to be buying these and selling them. But anyway, um, and and I talk about being pro 2A, pro Second Amendment, and
well, I can't own a
reducing
gun. I
spending.
hate the fact that the Constitution been taken out of being pro-gun, but you can't have your own individual safety if you've been labeled something, and it's kind of ridiculous. What's your stance on individual liberty as far as the Second Amendment that says that everybody has the human right, not just the constitutional right, to be able to defend themselves if an opponent brings the same kind of weapon, because you don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight and you don't want to bring
Right.
a cannon to a nuclear war.
I mean, I think I know what stigma you are referencing because my husband has a label from 20 years ago. So he personally can't defend himself with something in his name, at least. Um, I mean, I think if you're no longer deemed a threat to society and you can be released from prison or whatever, you should be able to have all your rights restored. If you are not trusted to own a gun or whatever, then you should probably still be in prison. Um, that's my personal belief. I think everyone should be able to defend themselves in the means that they deem necessary, as long as they're not initiating the force and and creating that aggression on someone else initially. So I
Yeah,
really I
and
really don't care. You want a tank? You want a helicopter? What the hell is that thing called? Um, uh,
I completely agree. I would say that
yeah.
if you're no longer representing a community threat as far as just own personal defense, I think everybody has that right as a human being to at least be somewhat on a level playing field. I don't even think that it's because when you talk about a gas price at $6 a gallon or $7 a gallon, or depending on where you live in the country, it kind of gets to the sense that you don't have you're always going to have to look over your shoulder to make sure that your goods and resources are protected because we know how hard it's going to come. You know what I mean? So I think that the federal government's trying to lobby to say that everybody doesn't need to own a certain type of weapon, I'm sorry, but if you can use an energy weapon against me or anything like that, and I'm Navy, so I know these things exist. You're not going to be able to say that I can't carry at least a revolver to try and compete, and I think that's where people are starting to see where these lines are being drawn. You know, do you think that personal sovereignty includes all choices? You know what I mean? No matter if there's any religious implications or societal implications, do you think that all choices are an individual's right to be able to decide where their life is going to go, especially in the country of the United States, where we have the ability to say we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
I mean, yeah, I personally think that everyone should have the choice to do what they want to do as long, again, as it's not hurting anybody. There's some things that I personally am against and would advocate against doing. Um, you know, I like for example, I'm personally pro-life, but I believe that the government should be pro-choice. No one should be dictating what someone does with their own body. Just like people would try and advocate me not to get a tattoo. It happened. It's
Yeah,
probably going to happen again.
sorry.
But, there's, some people might not like that I get a Wendy's meal every once in a while because it's fast food and it's not good for your body. There's so many things that people can try and regulate and dictate on how you live your life. And that's not what our country is built on. Our country is built on the freedom of, in my opinion, choice, and whether you like that choice or not. I mean, there are people who don't like that I'm a Christian. There's people that don't like Jewish people and things, but that's their choice of religious association. And as long as these people are not hurting people, they should be allowed to do with their life and their time and money what they choose to do.
The sun is really messing with me. I don't know if I see my shadow or if I'm wearing sunglasses or what. When it comes to the Constitution of the United States, it says that you have the freedom to assemble, you have the freedom to put out your information from freedom of press, you have the freedom of religion, and I think that people have lost those concepts because they want to dictate to other people what is a better choice. And people go to academics and they go to all these other so-called experts in these fields and say that, well, we should follow this person. Do you think that people have lost the idea of their own individuality just because of this of the loss of education systems that we have in the United States? Because we cannot be with our children in a 24-hour capacity. And this question is open to both women. I'm sorry. You guys identify. Now I say guys. Damn that language.
If you hear a tractor in the background, I am sorry. It is that time of the year.
Go ahead, Nicole. You can.
Repeat that, please.
Do you think that individual choice has been lost because of our education systems and the ability for people to understand that, not being with your children 24/7 because we have these systems set up? Do you think that people have lost their identity because of this?
I don't know that they lost their identity. Education is important, whether it comes from a public sector, a private sector, or in your own home. I think we have a group of adults who are trying to change that, but going to the opposite extreme of what it was. They think that their identity has been completely taken. So now we've gone completely to the other end of the spectrum and letting these people make a lot of choices that probably shouldn't be offered to them. I think there's a happy medium. I think we have to find that happy medium. I don't think that you should allow somebody who is not educated enough to make certain decisions in their life. A child who is, I will use my daughter as an example. At 2 years old, she wanted to get her ears pierced because one of her friends had her ears pierced. And I am like, no, not happening. I will, when you turn 13, we'll discuss it. This child couldn't even get a shot in her leg without 13 people holding her down. You're not getting your ear pierced. So I think by the time she was 7, she was like really on me to get her ears pierced, but she was still having a hard time getting a shot at the doctor's office. So I finally looked at her and said, when you can take a shot at the doctor's office without 13 people holding you down and you screaming like bloody murder and somebody's killing you, we'll discuss getting your ears pierced. The next vaccine or shot that she had to get, or I think the next one was a blood draw. she sat there and her little face turned so red because she was trying so hard to take it, let them do what they were going to do, because she had to prove to me that she needed to get her ears pierced. A 2-year-old is not responsible enough to take care of their ears, for ear piercing. They're not going to keep them clean. And if they still, at that point, they're still putting their feet in their mouth, So, some decisions need to be made. It's nice to be an individual. I mean, it's not that I'm against tattoos, but I don't think a child should have a tattoo. So when she came to me at 17 and said, "Mom, I want to get a tattoo," I'm like, not sure about that, but she wanted to express herself. Okay, that's a decision that you're going to make. Just remember that whatever you do, you live with the rest of your life, and if you can live with that, then go for it. So then she did get her tattoo, and I think she probably has a few now. I'm not sure. Mom doesn't ask. And she knows that I love that. I love seeing the artwork. I have a lot of friends that have tattoos. Is it something that I would do? No, I wouldn't do that to myself. But it's something that she wants to do, so I'll let her do it. So I think there needs to be a happy medium, and I think everybody can be their own individual. I raised her to be a very strong individual person, and to my own fault, I raised her that you don't need a partner in your life, that you can make it on your own. You don't have to rely on anybody. And now, because of me raising her that way, I think she's having a hard time finding a partner who she can rely on, because I've taught her not to rely on people. And I think that was my mistake. And I recognize that was my mistake. But I had also been in a relationship where I felt like I was stuck. And I couldn't leave, and I couldn't get out of the relationship that I was in. And I didn't want her to be in that relationship, that type of relationship. So I went the whole other spectrum for her. And now I see the damage that it's caused. So I can see that firsthand. And when you're doing it, you don't see it, but you'll see the damage later. And I think we need to find that happy medium.
Justine, what do you think about the people to identify as whatever they want as a 2, 3, 4-year-old, and then go beyond and say that, well, maybe those individual choices weren't the greatest? I mean, because we've lost our self-identity in some ways, because I think that we've lost our skill sets, because it's just, there's too much convenience. But that's my personal opinion. What do you think about individual choice, as far as, should we have these situations going on as far as our education systems?
That's a really loaded question.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, you're
Yes.
fine. I mean, I think it depends on, like, kind of what Nicole said, the situation. I think that we should be letting children be who they are, and embracing them for who they are, allowing them to explore. I'm not sure how I feel on some specific things, but I think that there should be education. I think there should be inclusion. I work in the school district, and I see, I'm going to specifically, and maybe it's because I got pride on the brain. There's a lot of debate on whether we should read books to kids about Johnny and his 2 moms. And I don't see a problem with that, because it is a part of our society. It is a part of something that they could encounter, and they should be able to understand how, what that, means. I mean, should they be told how they have romance and stuff? Probably, obviously not. Lingering cough from when I was sick last week. I think that there are age appropriateness to acceptance of kids being kids, and exposing them to new things. I personally got my ears pierced when I was a little baby. to kind of go onto Nicole's because my parents took care of it, but I wasn't allowed to do something like that again until I was in 5th grade, and I had a better understanding of what it entailed, what kind of care it needed, and things like that. And then when I was 16 or 17, I got my cartilage pierced by someone who was drunk, and who knows what else. But anyway,
Brittany
you
was
know,
by like right after we got her ears pierced the first time. She figured out how to pierce her own ears, and you would see her with a needle and an ice cube piercing her own damn ears. So
I will say it was my friend's brother, and he had like a legit piercing kit, so it wasn't like a needle and some ice, but he was pretty drunk when it happened. Or high, or both. I'm not entirely sure at this point. It's been almost 20 years since that happened. So,
Yeah, we're all so old. It sucks getting old, doesn't it?
yes,
it really does. But there's some things that I don't understand, and I don't want to lay judgment or an opinion on things when I haven't been in those people's shoes.
yes.
I would hope that I would seek support and information from other people who have been in those shoes if put in a situation that I'm unfamiliar with. And I think that I would also seek spiritual guidance personally on how to navigate some things. But I think listening to children, my son turned 8 today, and he's been very vocal about the things that he's into, the things he likes, the things he doesn't like, what he wants to do, what he doesn't want to do. And personally, in this situation, I listen to him. I understand he has a voice and he wants to use it. And then on the flip side, his father doesn't listen. And I see that the turmoil that causes him when he can't be who he wants to be, which is a soccer player, for the record.
I have a
And
son that wants to be a professional gamer.
yeah, my son is into geology, so he wants to be a geologist and a paleontologist, and right now he wants to play soccer.
I think that's the age, because when Britt was that age, she wanted to be a paleontologist. So her birthday cake that year was a dinosaur dig site.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it really comes down to, do we as adults feel like our voices are heard? And if we don't, is there something that stifled us in our childhood that led to us feeling that way today? Personally, my dad was very involved in my life, listened to me, allowed me independence, and I think that's why I'm the loud, outspoken, rebellious pain in the tush that I am today. But I get things done, and I advocate for people who don't have voices. And I think that that's, what we need to do is we need to allow these children to use their voice, teach them how to use it appropriately, and how to find the resources that they need to help kind of explain it a little bit better, to understand it a little bit better, and kind of to navigate that path for them, so that down the road when they're adults, they can use that voice for good and not for bad.
For me, with my children right now, my children will tell you point blank what they think, and they're not going to hesitate. My son's 10, and my daughter's 9. It's complete chaos with these two because they think they're 20. I'm going to tell you, and I've exposed them to multiple different facets of the world, whether it be our actual religion, background, Norse pagan, or Christianity, Islam, or the Jewish text. I mean, it's exposing them to everything. Here is the information. What do you want to learn? And the hard work of what it takes to tear, Class A truck apart, down to what it takes to fry an egg in a cast iron skillet with just lard or butter or something from, the old school days of how people used to live. It's something that they've taken to heart, and they understand the work that goes into every action of their everyday lives. I always ask my son, how long did it take you to get good at Call of Duty? He's like, well, a long time. Well, how long did it take you to ride your bike? Well, a long time. I said, you got help with keeping your bike upright, but it was on you after the fact, correct? And he's like, yes, it was. It was completely on me. And I was like, well, now you're learning, son, because it's always going to be on you to make the correct choices or to direct your life into the right way so that you have the best experience that you can have and you're going to achieve. You're not, you, and it's through the wisdom of failure, you will eventually achieve. And I think that's one thing that's happening right now with liberty parties. Out here, you have the Keystone Party in Pennsylvania. The Libertarian Party of Wisconsin is on fire right now, and we hope to be the cornerstone of freedom. And I know that mutual agreement can happen. Now, just think if there's a duopoly between the Keystone Party and the Libertarian Party. Holy shit! I think we can actually get some stuff accomplished, and I think that everybody in their environment or their lifespan brings a skill set of their life. What have you gone through? Everybody has a voice. Everybody has an opinion. I am going to sincerely, absolutely apologize for not hitting the go live button on Facebook. I'm sorry. We can do it again. And the thing is that we to be able to do things together to get stuff accomplished so that we promote the same kind of message, I think is excellent.
The Keystone Party is, I know that some of the people in the Libertarian Party in Pennsylvania do not like the Keystone Party, and that is their right. But we are working with a few of the local counties. Lancaster is one of them. We do a lot with Lancaster, Lebanon area. Some with a few of the people in York, but not too many. The York people, there's one or two that we still are very close with. The rest we're not. So we are trying to build that bridge between Keystone and Libertarian at a local level in our area, because we were all friends long before this divide happened, long before people said, I don't like the direction you're going, I need to go another direction. However, we still have common ground, and we're still working on that common ground. And I know that we would like to do that in other areas. And for those that will allow us to do that, we're more than happy to help you or have you help us do whatever it is, because our ultimate goal is just to spread the word of liberty and get liberty-minded people elected so that we can change what we need to change.
And where can people reach you, Nicole? NicoleShultz.com?
NicoleShultz.com.
And on that website, you will find a link now to the Keystone page.
To the Keystone Party.
I made sure to update that recently. But,
it's running along the bottom right there. Keystone Party or Keystone.party.
Keystone.party, yep. And just so everyone's aware, right now Pennsylvania is the founding state of the Keystone Party. We are we are doing all the groundwork to get our candidates on the ballot. We are proving that this will be successful, that this has a goal to go long term, and we already have over 20 other states willing to start state affiliates across the country. This is not just one state going rogue because they don't like some leprechaun. This is, yeah, I said it. He got in my face last year. I said it. I'm a lunatic. What can I say?
Holy shit. Yep, dab that.
He's from here. Okay, so we have to deal with him as a resident of this state. We didn't start Keystone because of that gentleman and that's a loosely used word, that person. We started Keystone because we wanted to put forth positive policy change. We wanted to put up serious candidates. We wanted to actually work on making change in this country, in this state, in our local governments. And we weren't seeing it happening with the party. And I say this, my husband is running for a congressional seat as a libertarian, and I support him because there are still candidates in the LP that want to do those things and are really trying to salvage the party. Nicole and I are women, and the people in our state do not like outspoken, confident women who will stand up against the misogyny. And so we were actually, we were pushed out of our own county, a county that I helped build back up after it was destroyed by someone who is now deceased.
I was actually
You know,
told that my county accepted a resignation that I never wrote and I never submitted. They're
Yeah.
like, we accept you and we accept your husband's resignation. And we're both going, what resignation? We didn't resign. I was removed from all of the committees that I was on because I could not be trusted. I spent the last probably 5 board meetings being berated by one person because they didn't like the audit that I had done. I'm sorry that you had skeletons in your closet. I am sorry I found your skeletons.
You can mention
well,
their
and here's
name.
what's crazy.
Let's
What's
put it out there.
crazy-
Mention their name.
No, because she could be.
They've
Filed a
already
lawsuit.
threatened to sue me. I actually have emails saying that they have threatened lawsuits against me. One actually physically threatened me, which is why at the last LP Pennsylvania convention, my husband never left my side because he was more worried about what I would do to them
Well, and
than what they would
what's
do to me.
Yeah, it's just
What's
crazy. I
crazy
didn't
is-
hear these stories.
Yes.
Yeah, what's crazy is Nicole was berated by this person at like every meeting about not having a full treasurer's report and not giving all the details. And the new treasurer who took over, who is a freaking whack job, she
Hasn't
is
given
not
a treasurer
giving,
report.
she hasn't given a full treasurer's report, and they've been letting it slide.
Well, meanwhile,
Yeah.
while I'm also being the treasurer, I am also conducting the audit and giving them everything I could. I mean, we went back, 7 years, 8 years?
7 years.
7 years. We went back 7 years. We went through meeting minutes. We went through bank statements, canceled checks. We got copies. We had to pay to get all of the bank statements. We had to pay to get copies of the canceled checks. I went through and individually looked at every deposit slip to make sure that the money coming in was actually the money that was deposited. And let me tell you, no business should accept cash at conventions because the easiest way to steal from a business is to take cash. So we were trying to change. We were trying to change how we were doing conventions so that there would be less cash, so less misappropriation of assets.
Funds? Yeah.
Funds and assets. So,
and commingling of funds, because the person who was given cash was also the treasurer for the state party of a specific PAC.
Ooh.
So that never should have been. That never should have been. The treasurer of a PAC should never be the treasurer of a political party. That's a conflict of interest.
Yes.
And then one year they bought thousands of dollars of Avery products.
So, they're like, you also need to go back and fix the last 3 years' state reports because they're not correct. The expenses, every expense was Avery Labels, $7,000, Avery Labels, $30, Avery Labels, $1,300. I'm like, who spends that kind of money on Avery freaking Labels? We should have stopped the goddamn company.
Sounds like a Fed.
Is that, and if it wasn't Avery Labels, it was a post box.
It sounds like a Fed.
In an area that it shouldn't still be
No,
in. Because
that's a Fed.
The treasurer.
And
but I was the bad guy
because I'm gonna do my own research.
I was the bad guy because I found all of this stuff, and their ongoing remark to me was, we wanted an expense report, not an audit. And I'm like, you created a fucking audit committee, not an expense report committee. Right, you wanted this falls under. Yeah, this falls under know what you ask for before you ask for it, because you might not like what you get, and they did not like what they got. So that made me the bad guy. I knew going in when I found a lot of the stuff that I found, and we found a lot. There was one key thing that we found, and I'm like, this will tank my lieutenant governor run for the Libertarian Party, and I know it. So I now have to decide, do I save my lieutenant governor run, or do I put out the truth? And my moral code said, put out the truth. And they were giving me a hard time because the last few meetings I was very emotional. I was emotional because I knew that I was throwing my lieutenant governor run in the trash.
And couldn't say anything because of lawsuits.
Yes, and then not be able to say anything
sued,
because of lawsuits.
You're using the state against a liberty-minded individual instead of hashing it out as a liberty-minded individual.
I gave them options, though. I'm like, we can have an outside audit committee, an outside audit company come in and audit what we found to make sure to verify what we found. You can have an outside forensic audit done, and it will find the same thing that I found. And I'm like, we can do that, and if we take care of it, and that these people make restitution, and everything's good, we're good. I'm good with that. We don't have to name names. We don't have to do anything. Let's just fix it and correct it so it doesn't happen again.
But one person spoke up and was like, why do we need to spend the money on that? We need that. And then turned around and asked for $15,000 for ballot access. Let me just tell you something. When we left the party, they had nowhere near $15,000 in that bank account. They were near broke. And then they still owed people refunds from convention. They still owed the former executive director. Well, Nicole had just paid
I paid him at convention to make sure he got paid.
It was a mislip. But they also then paid the deposit for next year's convention, and they had like next to no money. They were begging people to do monthly donations so that they would have some money so they could just pay their monthly expenses. And the guy he is very good in what he wants to do. He just is in a mindset of it. The money needs to go to what I want it to go to, because I think that's the most important thing. And he was like, why do we have to worry about that? You know why you have to worry about it? Because the AG will come knocking on the LP's door.
And the AG is already knocking on the door.
You look at the convention was illegitimate. They allowed out-of-state people to vote in the convention, which is against election code law in Pennsylvania, which nullifies the whole convention. So everyone who was voted in at that convention could technically be challenged and disqualified from being that current office.
Hold on.
By the state.
I think this was the same argument Karen Ann Harlos was bringing at an LP national meeting of the LP committee. This was something that she was bringing up and saying that the committee that was there is the legitimate committee, not the one that replaced them.
What? I think that's the Massachusetts situation.
Holy shit.
Pennsylvania.
Is it the same fucking thing happening there too?
So what happened is our election law says that out of state, you have to be registered in the state of Pennsylvania unless prohibited by law, because like if you're in jail or whatever, which then you're not really a convention, but you have to be registered to vote in Pennsylvania to be able to vote for candidates and officers. For candidates and officers of a political party. You have to be a registered voter. And what happened was we found out that we had been violating this law. It had been brought to our attention by a member. He tried to get us to correct it. The board decided to do nothing. And when I say the board, I mean the majority. There was about 15 of us who wanted to do something. And then there was 30 people who did not, because they had all their friends coming from out of state to help their people win at convention. With that takeover thing that the Leprechaun was doing. And then
I know who you're talking about, and trust me,
I just like calling
I will blast on dude.
So
when he's at convention going like this or like this for every vote to the whole. One man had a vote at our convention. One man. Not the 500 people that were there.
Anyway, the board chose not to do anything prior to convention. Then at the beginning of convention, someone addressed it again and was like, this need, and of course they allowed everyone from out of state that was there as a delegate to vote on whether they should be able to vote at convention.
Well, no shit.
Yeah, like it's obviously going to pass.
Even before that, they're like, well, you're going to have to refund them all the money that, they paid for a convention. I'm like, the business meeting is free. The only thing they're not allowed to do is the business meeting. And they're like, well, no, they have to get refunded for all the ticket sales for Amash and for, the Hatchet House and for Cohen and anybody else who was speaking. And it's like, well, those events are still happening. They can still go to those events. They just can't vote. So, yes, if they want refunds for the business meeting, as treasurer, I will refund every 0 cent that you paid in to visit with us to do the business meeting, because you paid 0 for that. I will refund you 0. Everything else is happening. They can still come and do it.
So we tried to again fix it so that the convention would be legal, and it stayed not legal. So, and then it was broadcast on public television. And what happened is they elected their officers with out-of-staters. There was 85 out-of-state people. I think it was the final total.
What? At a state convention?
There was 113 out-of-state voters.
Okay, it was 80 to 100. Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah. How can you be out of state, but then you're a state voter and you don't live there and you can't have a P.O. box?
So we actually have one person, the same person who sent me the threatening email. He lives in a different state, has a P.O. box in Pennsylvania that somehow he managed to have someone else pay for other than himself. You can guess who paid for that P.O. box. I'm sure you can guess it with one hint.
A Fed?
No, we'll tell you later.
It still sounds like a Fed to me.
So we shouldn't have had them voting, but they still allowed them to vote. So we had that 100 and some people who said they wanted to still vote, so they voted that they could still vote, and so they still got to vote, which was against the law. So they voted for the new officers. They voted for the governor candidate. That's when Michael Heiss put up a sex predator who does not meet the residency requirements to run against Joe Solosky for the governor nomination. But then they voted for Noda. The delegates voted for Noda for governor and lieutenant governor. That's who they chose. They chose Noda. And then they went against the delegates' choice, and the board appointed or nominated people at an after meeting. So
an after meeting? What the fuck is an after meeting?
Like the first meeting after convention.
Well, then it got pushed to the next weekend because they didn't have a lot of the affiliates wanted to go back. Well, they did have quorum, but a lot. Greg, I think it might have been Greg Perry who said, while I know who I would vote for, I think a lot of our representatives would want to go back to their counties and talk to their counties to see who their counties would want to have voted in. So they gave them 7 or 10 days to do that.
I still don't understand how people outside of living in your state has a right to vote at a state.
Because the leprechaun said they did.
I know who the leprechaun is because he's a little guy.
Yeah, he's a little guy who wears green and gold.
And red hair.
What's crazy is they voted Noda against Nicole for lieutenant governor, but then they put her name on for governor. Then they put her name on for governor. She wasn't good enough to be lieutenant governor. Then they tried to nominate her for governor, and it was because they realized that they ticked off all the people who did the work in this state, and they were trying to salvage anybody that might stick around to help do the work. And Nicole ended up losing the governor nomination, but our friend Tim got the lieutenant governor nomination, and he's one of the people who does all the work in the state. So they thought that people would stay around to help Tim do all the work.
I was actually told that they nominated me for governor because they wanted to throw the people of Pennsylvania in the Libertarian Party a bone.
What?
Yeah.
You're not throwing anybody a bone in the Libertarian Party.
But then they came to me later and said, "You're not good enough for governor or lieutenant governor, but we would love to have you in one of the state positions if you want to run for state senate or something like that." And I'm like, you do
like
realize
some asshole is good enough to run for state representative. I'm good enough to run for the president of the United States.
But here's the thing.
The thing is that
in the
I'm
state
labeled XYZ. The thing is shit's ridiculous.
A person in the state representative position actually does more work and has more say and is more vocal than the lieutenant governor or the governor. So
whether
I'm
you're
not
from the House or the Assembly.
Exactly. I'm not qualified for those two positions, but I'm more than qualified for this one. That makes no sense. And I realize you're just trying to throw me a bone to make me happy, but no, that's not. I don't play that game.
Wow.
I ran for chair of the LPPA against the guy who currently sits there illegitimately, and I knew that I was.
No, he's not the leprechaun.
Okay. He's not the official chair. He's a peon of him, but he's not.
It's a puppet position.
Yeah. So I ran, even though I knew I was going to lose. I did get 70-some votes compared to his 200. It's not that big of a deal. But I said I wasn't going to storm away. I was going to stay. And someone nominated me for judicial committee. And so I accepted the nomination, and I walked up there and I told you guys I wasn't going to rage quit. I'm here. Someone nominated me. Let me do, I'd love to do and help out and stuff. And I came in 6th. They picked people who had been in the party for less than a year. I mean, maybe even less than 6 months to be on the judicial committee.
I was going to say the one didn't qualify.
No, they qualified. You're thinking of LNC. For the state party,
Pennsylvania seems like it's rocking and rolling right now as far as why Keystone was developed.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you push the hard workers out, they need a place to go. We made a place for them to go.
The people who helped 176 people get elected last year, the people who were monumental in that accomplishment happening, are now
posted all over the fucking place, right?
They're all in Keystone. They'll tell you that they were the ones out there doing all the work. In fact, they're the ones who tried to stop the Moulton Maneuver. They're the ones who tried to stop the funding. They're the ones who called them dog catcher positions. They're the people who needed to have their hand held when we convinced them to run for office.
It sounds like music to my fucking ears.
My husband had to basically hold the hand of Jacob Winograd because he couldn't go and knock on a door and ask for a signature from someone in our neighborhood.
But then Jacob's all over social media saying that he did it all himself and that nobody was there. And I'm like, I called him out on it. I'm like, so I wasn't there, Christine wasn't there, Dave wasn't there, we weren't all out there collecting signatures for you. It was just you all by your lonesome. Bullshit.
How much? I don't know if anybody follows the Libertarian Discussion Board, but how many of you follow the keyboard warriors that have been all over that platform currently ever since the quote-unquote takeover?
I've actually blocked some of them. It's better for my mental health.
Yeah, actually,
the threats just done with it.
I've left a lot of the chats. I stopped following the LPPA. I still get emails. In fact, I just got the resumes for the two people they're considering for the executive director because these people are incompetent. I left the membership committee. I was removed as the membership representative.
I'm still getting treasurer emails.
Yeah, because you're still a part of the party according to their numbers.
So no, here's the thing. I was the membership rep, so I'm getting the emails for the reps for the board, which I shouldn't be getting. I was removed by the board because I wasn't voting the way that Leprechaun's people wanted me to vote. And so they voted to remove me, even though the membership committee voted to keep me as their rep. So I got removed. So I've been removed since January, February, and I physically left the committee in March. I'm still getting the emails. This is how incompetent they are. So I can tell you guys that they're looking at John Rosso, who's a former Republican and helped work on Republican campaigns for executive director. And C. Joseph Gross has also submitted his stuff for consideration. There is also someone else who has expressed interest but has not sent the credentials yet.
Jeff Douglas.
No, actually, it's actually someone that we are friends with. That's why I'm not blasting his name. But it's just they're so they talk about, like, I do see some things here online. So what they did, because they're this intimidated and worried about Keystone, they went and made a ton of fake Twitter accounts
Mm-hmm.
and have been trolling and calling people cucks and stuff like that on there. They created
Remember, I
a
think Cuck is Jimmy Dore, which is a
I
leftist
don't know.
socialist kind of fucking kind of. It
I saw
mentions
it
that
today.
you're a subservient male, pretty much, that's willing to eat the
That's what I thought. They were
whatever.
calling Steve Sheets and John Waldenberger that. They created a Mises caucus of the Keystone Party, Twitter. They created a cathedral caucus of the Keystone Party, Twitter. They've been trolling all different kind of stuff. And, and now if you look at their logo, they call themselves the Liberty Party of the Keystone State. We are not apparently allowed to use the word libertarian, even though it's a philosophy and anybody can say that they believe in the libertarian philosophy. They will jump on our shit for using the words libertarian in any kind of sense and fashion. But if you go on their page, it literally says, I'm gonna read it
If you
verbatim.
don't say party after it, it's still an ideology.
Yeah. It says, bring true liberty to the Keystone State is what they use now, right on their main logo and stuff at the top next to their 3 candidates. Like, we are trying to literally distance ourselves from the actual party in its entirety, and they're trying to still make that connection because they're mad because we started this party on April 4th. And for people to run as a Keystone candidate, that are registered as a major or minor party, they had to change their registration by basically Easter Sunday. So we had a donor that donated thousands of dollars so that we could do a text campaign and a phone call or a phone banking campaign to try and recruit people who are like-minded to run under the Keystone banner, which was libertarians, because we're not going to reach out to Republicans and Democrats. Libertarians most align with our philosophy as our party. So we used this donor's money to reach out to elected libertarians. We were getting a ton of hate from that because we were taking their candidates. These people get a choice. They can choose to stay or they can choose to leave. We're not forcing anyone. We're not hassling them. We're saying, hey, would you like to come and run with Joe and Nicole and blah, blah, blah? Oh, no? Okay, great. Have a great day. And moving on. They didn't
Seeing
like that. They
the
accused us
it's a
of stealing
dictatorship.
data.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, they accused us of
dictatorship.
stealing data. It's just, yeah, they accuse us of stealing data, which can be bought for $25 from the state. Like, literally, yeah, like you're an idiot. You obviously have no idea how any of this works. If you think we just would violate our NDAs and everything like that we had with the party, when we can just literally buy it for $25.
I can buy data of any individual on the planet depending on how much money I want to spend.
Yeah. They just don't understand that. They see it as, oh, they're succeeding. Oh, they've got this information. They must have taken it from us.
And that's
No.
propaganda because that's horse shit.
Yep.
Because I can
They
spend money and pay a company to give me all the download data of anybody in the state of Wisconsin, depending on how deep my fucking pockets are. And I can walk up to their household and identify their fucking IP address and say, hey, look, you were looking at this second of your life in the corner of your house because your location is within like 3 feet, according to GPS right now. To your device, it's like 3 feet.
Well, and they're just, it proves how incompetent that a lot of them are, because they think we stole
Well, it's
everything because that's how
ignorance.
they do it. That's how they do it, because they forget that we've got Jen and Steve and Kevin. Kevin, is the one who brought us in like thousands and thousands of dollars in his time as executive director. He personally donated over $60,000, I believe was the final number, into this party over 3 years.
Of
Like,
his own money?
of his own money. He got paid and he donated it right back to the party, in addition to additional money to help the party succeed.
That's a tax write-off.
That's a Nicole question. I don't know the specifics, but because it's a political party, I don't think it actually is. But
Well, it's a
Kevin and
donation.
Jen, and it's listed as an expense or whatever. But Jen, Steve, and here's the other thing: there are people who left the party that didn't come to Keystone. They started their own party, the Pirate Party. One of the other former chairs of the LPPA started the Pirate Party. So we have 3 former chairs of the LPPA that left, like recent chairs that left the party. That if that doesn't scream to you that something's wrong, I don't know what else does or will.
I was gonna say Sean House left the party too.
He didn't leave in the same context as like Jen, Steve, and Drew. He
Yeah.
left as he's going to focus on his business. He still identifies as a libertarian. He plans on staying as a libertarian. He is voting for Joe because he's his accountant and he knows him and supports him and stuff. But
Well, and yeah, he already.
And
told
Joe
me.
is still running as a libertarian, correct?
No.
so Joe is running as a libertarian candidate under the Keystone banner. He still believes in the libertarian philosophy, but he is running as the Keystone governor candidate. Same with like Nicole. She is a candidate who believes in the libertarian philosophy, but is running as a Keystone candidate. It's like if someone were to try and say they're conservative, but they're not running as a Republican. Like they're a conservative independent. The Republicans don't own the word, the philosophy of being a conservative.
Yeah, it's not it's not an individual thing. It's something that is a broad spectrum. So I mean, it's not something that one party can own versus another.
Yep, and it's not trademarked. It's like it's a philosophy. It's a way of life.
Obviously, if he can be the lunatic libertarian, the word libertarian is not trademarked because if it was, they would not allow you to use it.
I wouldn't give a fuck if they allowed me to use it or not. I'm a real libertarian.
Well,
You're not going to tell me what to do about anything. And
the funny thing about
when you
it
talk
is,
about anarchy, I have all the skill sets of anarchy, from survivalist to shooting to being in the backwoods, butt ass naked, and going hunting my own food. So no. I am an anarchist because I can tell you all about HVAC systems, electrical systems, anything that you can talk about as far as what makes structures or anything operate in this world. I probably have an opinion on it, and it's probably an educated opinion. I don't believe that nuclear is the way to go. I think that the way to go for our own personal prospects is to get back to natural gas as far as funneling that out of the ground to our own houses, not something as a commercial product. And then I also think that if we can sustain a livestock and a crop, that is the way to go as far as human beings in their own individual skill sets and their own individual survival, to make sure that they don't have to rely on an economy or anything like that, because you can produce the products that are given to you through fiat currency. It just depends on how much work you want to put in. But we know from ancient times that people can put in work and get stuff done. So I appreciate you guys doing that for the Keystone Party. I appreciate everybody that comes on my podcast. I love the Keystone Party. It sounds pretty cool. Not there yet. I'm a libertarian. I'm a part of my state party. So I love the concept that maybe Keystone and Libertarian could become the duopoly. Maybe that should be something that happens. Fuck these Republicans and Democrats. What do y'all think of that?
Hey, would you like a fun fact?
I love facts.
Our mascot is the owl. Would you like to know why it is the great horned owl?
It's a
It is
predator.
it is the only known predator of the porcupine.
Ooh, Ooh, the talons are digging deep. Talons are digging deep.
Yeah, the great horned
It's
owl.
also a symbol of wisdom, and it sees through deceit and things like that, and it's a sign of change.
Yes.
Typically, it is a sign of things that have died and then been rebirthed.
And it
Ooh.
eats porcupines for breakfast. That was
As a
just a cherry
pagan,
on
you're
top.
talking some deep shit to me because when you think about the two ravens that sat on the shoulders of Odin, Huin and Munin, and they were wisdom and memory, and thought and memory, yeah, trust me, I think there could be a coalition there in the future, just as long as the bad blood gets the bad actors out there.
I
I think there's
think
a
once
lot of bad actors coming into the party as far
I
as
think
libertarian,
once
and I'm
the
not afraid to say it as an official paying member of the Libertarian Party. I'm not afraid to say that there's bad actors out there. I'd like to
I
know
think
where all
once
these
the
people are.
leprechaun I think once the leprechaun is put in his place,
In jail.
yes, a lot of that will change. I don't understand. He's kind of like Trump. He has a voice that people are listening to, and nobody understands why. Um, he's he's not. I mean, Trump had a charisma to him that made people flock to him. The leprechaun doesn't even have that charisma, so I'm not even sure why people flock to him. He's more like Jim Jones. But I think his true side will be shown shortly because a lot of people who did believe in him and did follow him saw the light right around and right before convention. They saw what was really going on and they saw through the bullshit and they saw the truth. Um, that I think others will eventually see that. There are unfortunately way too many followers in the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania, and they just want to be his friend so they could be the big wig on the block. And that's not what libertarianism is about. So until he's put in his rightful place, which is not the head of the LPPA or the head of the LNC, um, nobody's going to see through it. Those followers are still going to follow. And the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania will be what it is. It will crash and burn before it gets fixed.
I like hard workers. I like people that know what they're talking about. It seems like as farmers and politicians and people that understand people's individual liberty and their right to have their choices, you two women probably have a level head. I think that's great.
Which is why we're not welcome in the LPPA currently.
Well, the hierarchy is something that can be dictated by man through physical force, but I'm supposed to not. I'm a naturally aggressive person. That's what the NAP means to me. And we all have definitions of acronyms and non-aggressive principle. I've asked many libertarians about this. It's against human nature. And the thing is that we have the survival of the fittest. And we have people that have the skill sets to produce and the skill sets to consume. I think that as long as there are liberty-minded people out there, regardless of what affiliate or party you want to contribute your time to, if you're going to put the effort into it, your message should be heard. And I think the Keystone Party has a message that should be heard, and I think maybe a lot of libertarians want to hear that message. And that's why Justin Lomness is the Lunatic Libertarian. And any final thoughts from our potential Lieutenant Governor, Nicole Shultz, out here in Pennsylvania, and a potential, Senate race?
State rep.
And Christine. Liberty 101.
I don't have any thought. Yeah. I mean, check out Liberty 101 on Mondays at 7 o'clock most of the time, unless I am at my son's soccer stuff or a borough meeting. I mean, that's back there. Priorities, right? But no, check that out and get active. Help collect signatures, get out there, do trash cleanups because they're important, do food drives because they're important, work with your community because it's important. Some other people don't think it is, and that's why we got kicked out of our county, but they're all important. And if you are going to talk about the libertarian policies and platform and philosophy. You need to actually embrace it and do it and show that it can work in your community. And you do that by getting out there.
You need to, if you want to see change, you need to be the change you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's said a lot, and I know it's overused, but it is so true. If I want people to follow what I'm doing, then I need to be the one out there doing it. I need to be in my community cleaning up a park that was defaced by vandals. I need to be out there picking up trash along the highway or in the inner city because somebody's got to do it. And if we want lower taxes, the only way to get sometimes lower taxes is to actually put in the work ourselves. And we need to do that. We need to clean up our communities. We need to clean up our waterways. And we need to help the local farmers because starvation sucks.
And farmers feed the community. And remember, hard work goes into your food. Hard work goes into producing a product that can transfer your food from one system to another. Just remember, hard work goes into everything, people. It's not one person. It's always going to be the community that provides for everybody. No matter if you're producing food or you're providing clean waterways because you care about your environment, and it's not detrimental. The lunatic is starting to slur. So I got to go. I appreciate my guest, Nicole Shultz for Lieutenant Governor, and Christine, Liberty 101 from Not a Real Libertarian podcast. Check out Bootleg. Check out Mr. Bearded Truth on Muddy Waters Media. I'm a subscriber. Get out there. Get liberty in your mind. Understand how shit gets done. Know how things get done. And how things work. I want to talk to you ladies just after this is done. So thank you very much for coming on Lunatic Libertarian. I'm Just Wellness, and we are